Wait for me to sit down.
We did our presentation on physical and cognitive development in adolescence. My name's Megan.
I'm Acacia. And I'm Mila.
To begin, we're going to start with the introduction. Then Mila will discuss her article, I will cover my article, and Acacia will address hers. After the articles, we will move on to the exam questions we have created for you, then finish up with the conclusion. What are the physical changes of adolescence? Physical development within adolescence includes many different changes due to puberty. During puberty, your brain releases certain hormones that cause physical changes to your body, and your sexual organs also mature. During puberty, you may experience a rapid growth spurt as well as weight changes. Other physical changes may be things like body odor, acne, and increase in body hair. Usually, growth spurts happen earlier for females than males. Most females have their growth spurt between the ages of 10 and 14. And for males, it is between the ages of 12 to 17. For females, they begin to develop breasts. This can happen as young as 10 and should be started by the age of 14. They also experience their first menstruation cycle about 2 years after their breasts and pubic hair are noticeable. Males will start to see their penis and testicles grow. They begin to experience erections and ejaculations, although erections can happen normally from birth, as you can see in an ultrasound. These physical changes are normal and can happen to everyone, but the timing can vary between everyone. Some adolescents mature earlier, while others mature later. What are the cognitive changes of adolescence? Brain development in adolescence is on a higher level than childhood. While children may also think logically about concrete data, adolescents can think in terms of what might be true rather than what they see as true. They can deal with abstractions, test hypotheses, and see infinite possibilities. They still often display egocentric behaviors and attitudes. During cognitive development in adolescence, large numbers of neurons grow rapidly. Your body experiences an increase in the way these bundles of nerves connect. This is more complex, called sophisticated thinking. Which part of the brain develops last in adolescence? The part of the brain that develops last in adolescence is the frontal cortex. It doesn't finish maturing until you reach your mid to late 20s. This area of your brain controls functions such as planning, prioritizing, and controlling impulses. Since your frontal cortex develops so late, you may see an increase in risk-taking behaviors and mood swings. When adolescents don't use their frontal cortex and are acting impulsively, this thought process is called hot cognition. Cold cognition is when you use the logical part of your brain. Overall, adolescence is a time for rapid physical growth, expanding cognitive abilities, and ongoing brain development. These all shape the transition from childhood to adulthood.
So my article was called Adolescent Development. So first I'm going to talk about how the article starts by talking about development in adolescence. So the article starts off by discussing what adolescence is and the importance of this stage of development. Development in adolescence can be influenced by many factors. These factors include environmental factors, and adolescence goes through physical, psychological, social, and cognitive changes. A quote from the article that is an example on how many of these factors influence development is: a toxic environment makes healthy adolescence development challenging. Next, I'll be talking about physical development, a major topic. When it comes to physical development, one of the major topics the article discusses is puberty. Puberty is a major event where a person's body changes and hormones increase. These changes can include growth spurts, body hair, changes in voice, and other physical developments. The article also explains that the timing of puberty can be influenced by many environmental factors. For example, early puberty or a faster pace of development has been linked to stress, childhood physical or sexual abuse, father absence, and exposure to certain chemicals found in plastics, pesticides, and hair care products. These outside factors can affect how the body develops when puberty begins. Overall, puberty triggers many important biological and physical changes in adolescence. Next, I'll be talking about cognitive development. Next article talks about how the brain and teens think. During adolescence, the brain goes through major changes, and adolescence gets better at processing information, reasoning, thinking, and learning. Their cognitive abilities become more advanced as they grow, but the article also points out that even though the brain is becoming more mature, early adolescents can sometimes become more reckless. This is because the emotional parts of the brain develop faster than the parts responsible for self-control. Because this imbalance, teens may take more risks and become more sensitive to peer pressure. This is a normal part of development, and as they get better at making decisions, and as they get older, the brain becomes more balanced and better at making decisions. A quote that I found from the article is, changes in components of cognitive control, such as response selection and goal selection, along with closely associated constructs such as working memory, increased individual capacity versus self-regulation. This quote relates to cognitive development and talking about how adolescents brains change. And then I'll be talking about how both cognitive and physical development was discussed in the article. Puberty doesn't just change the body, it also changes the brain. The hormonal shifts that happen during puberty actually help rewire the brain. This affects important cognitive functions like self-regulation, decision-making, and emotional processing.
Looking at my article, Sex Differences in Mental Abilities, Hemispheric Lateralization, and Rate of Physical Growth in Adolescence, he discussed both physical and cognitive development. This article connects different parts and patterns of physical maturity to emerging cognitive differences during adolescence. He argues that sex differences in certain cognitive abilities correspond with the timing and rate of physical growth spurts, suggesting that biological maturity influences cognitive development. Looking at physical growth, Weber highlights that boys and girls experience different trajectories of physical growth during adolescence, particularly in the timing of pubertal growth spurts. Girls typically mature earlier, while boys undergo a later but more pronounced physical development. These sex-specific growth patterns provide biological context for understanding the timing of cognitive changes. Now moving on to cognitive development. Adolescence is a period in which mental abilities begin to diverge between sexes, with boys often showing strengths in spatial abilities and girls in certain verbal skills. He connects these patterns to neurological factors such as hemispheric lateralization, or the focus of the brain's hemispheric for different functions. His argument suggests that the biological process unfolding during puberty may influence the maturation of these cognitive specialization. Finally, looking at the integration of physical and cognitive changes. Weber links the rate of physical growth to cognitive development. He proposed that sex differences in brain lateralization and mental abilities may reflect underlying endocrine changes that occur during the adolescence growth spurt. This reinforces the idea that adolescence is a biopsychosocial period where physical, neurological, and cognitive systems develop in a coordinated fashion.
Okay, for my article, I'm talking about how stress during adolescence affects both physical and cognitive development. During puberty, the body is already going through huge changes, and stress can actually interfere with these systems. For physical development, stress turns on the body's stress hormone system, the HPA axis, a lot more than normal. When this keeps happening, it can mess with long-term hormone regulation. Stress also throws off the coordination between the HPA and the HPG systems. Those are the systems that handle stress and puberty hormones. Even immune-related stress at this age can change hormone receptors in the brain, which means the body isn't responding to hormones the way it should. For cognitive development, stress affects the brain too. High stress during puberty has been linked to lower cognitive performance later in adulthood. It can even shrink or weaken the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that helps with learning and memory. Stress also gets in the way of hormones that normally support memory and learning. So the brain doesn't develop those skills as strongly. When we put physical and cognitive development together, we see that stress makes adolescents more vulnerable to things like anxiety and depression. It can change the brain circuits that control memory, emotions, and hormones all at the same time. Stress also alters hormone receptors in the brain, which affects both how teens manage emotions and how well they think, learn, and remember. So overall, stress during adolescence doesn't just impact the mood, it can shape how the body and brain develop long term. Okay, so we have 3 exam questions. Question number 1. Which statement best reflects how puberty and cognition develops during adolescence? A, puberty is unaffected by outside influences and adolescents already have fully mature thinking skills. B, environmental stressors can speed up puberty and brain changes, improve reasoning, but also increase risk-taking and peer sensitivity. C, cognitive development slows down puberty. And D, puberty is only controlled by genetics. Short answer. How do sex-specific physical changes in adolescence relate to differences in cognitive development, including factors like maturation timing and brain lateralization? Another short answer. How does stress during puberty affect both physical and cognitive development? So our conclusion, overall, all 3 of our articles discuss and emphasizes how important this developmental stage is and all the different changes that happen during adolescence in terms of physical and cognitive development. Those are our references. Thanks.